So, welcome to this first Home Moves class presented or sponsored by the City of Darebin, Get Active. And this is an awareness through movement class that I have the pleasure of teaching online now. First time I've taught a class online, so we'll just see how that goes. Now, on the floor and being willing to be filmed as a part of this experiment, we have Rachel. Give us a wave, Rachel. So we're at home together in this externally enforced lockdown, and Rachel is my partner and she's doing the class. So there'll be a camera on Rachel today. Now, my advice to you in doing this class is not to look at the camera. But if you feel compelled to, then you'll either have me on the screen talking or you'll have Rachel on the floor doing. Now, it's not to say that Rachel is a perfect example of what these lessons are about, because fundamentally, awareness through movement is an individual process, and it's an intrinsically self-driven process. It's somatic education, which means it's about you feeling what your own process is inside yourself. So I'm going to be giving verbal instructions, and then you've got to just feel your way through that. Now, everyone's physiology is different, and therefore how everyone moves is going to be different. So just because Rachel's doing it the way she is doesn't mean that you should be doing it in the same way, but it's just an example. So thanks enormously to Rachel for being willing to do this. Now, we're also joined by Mr. Skeleton Pants, who's pretty cool. He's taken up a position on the couch over there. So intermittently we might switch over to Skeleton Cam because he's really good at illustrating our bone structure. So where there are elements of the lesson that might be elucidated by having an example of a skeleton, we might switch over to Mr. Skeleton Pants, who's been very, very kind to join us today. So that's that's that. Now we have an hour, and I'm pretty excited about delivering this lesson. Do apologise I was aware that some people commented on the event on Facebook or maybe on one of my posts asking some questions, so I'll answer those now. One of them was about how to prepare for the lesson and what's required. So, what's required is just yourself feeling comfortable in your clothing. So that's a strange way to say it, just wear comfortable clothes. It's too late for that now anyway, I guess, unless you want to go and keep your pajamas on. And the second thing you need is some floor space. So ideally a rug. If you've got a yoga mat, you can lie on a yoga mat or some other kind of mat. You want something that's still going to give you a firm sense of the floor or a firm sense of ground if you happen to be outside, although today's the first day that's not particularly nice. So now, why is that? The reason why that is because these lessons are, for the most part, done in a lying down position, either on your front or on your back or on your side, and it's part of the clever design that Moshe Feldenkrais came up with, which is about removing the habitual response from the big stabilizer muscles that keep us upright in the field of gravity. So the best chance we have of eliminating some of that habitual response is to remove the need for those stabilizer muscles to be keeping us up. So lying down is good. A lot of the lessons are done lying down. However, all of the rules in the Feldenkrais method and awareness through movement are pretty much made to be broken. So whilst that might be a caveat, it's also true that it's not true all of the time. However, in this lesson it is. So if you can find somewhere to lie down, that would be great. Like I said, you don't need to be looking at the camera at all. You just need to be able to hear me. Okay, so just take a breath and let's begin. So to begin with, if you could lie down on your back One of the subtexts to this lesson series that I described in the event description was that we're going to be playing with the ideas of connection and constraint. Now, these are subject matter that comes up in the Feldenkrais method a lot, but I wanted to hone in on them because I thought they were particularly interesting given the times that we're living in right now. Connection's been big for me in my teaching, in these lessons, in my life really. And I've been developing another series called Ecosomatica, which is all about finding ground and finding connection to ground. So I'm just drawing upon that in this lesson series as well. So what does connection mean? And in this instance, and in these lessons, it's about finding the ground. And what better way to do that than to be lying down on your back? So in this position, just please feel into what the nature of the contact that you're having with the ground is. Now, if you're not used to that question being asked, it can be a bit of a strange question, so let me specify a little bit. Feel into the parts of you that feel like they're heavy on the ground, pressing hard, wide, or present. And then try and get a sense, if you can, of the parts of you that are actually not contacting the ground. Typically behind your ankles, possibly behind your knees. Could be some part of your upper thigh or not. Lower back is a big one for most people, and for some people it isn't even a comfortable position to lie supine like this on your back. There's a very interesting area behind your shoulders and in between your shoulders, and then there's the back of the neck. So these are all places that are generally and typically lifted from the ground. So just feel into those places, and it's a curious thing. How do you feel into something that is not there, that is not actually receiving kinesthetic contact? So you feel into those places by feeling into the places that are around them. And if I was to ask you, what percentage of yourself do you feel is in contact with the ground? What would it be? Now in a moment I'm going to start giving some direction about how to move or what to move. So I just want to lay down, and this is particularly important because I can't see you. This is a one-way visual communication, so it's really important that you follow some ground rules, I guess. I'm reluctant to use the word rules, but it's just really careful. It's really important that you are gentle with yourself through this process, and that you take responsibility for your safety. And let's take a step back from safety and talk about comfort. Stay in what's comfortable. Move lightly and easily. Go for grace of movement rather than large movements. Okay, and I'll keep returning to this and encouraging you to do that. You know, pull back. Notice when it's an effort. Notice when it's a strain. These are signs, these are signals. It's only because there's things that are happening which are getting in the way generally that these movements become difficult. Only do what you can do. If it's painful, lie back, close your eyes and imagine the movement. And I'm serious about that, and it still works, it still has an effect. So don't push through pain here. We're not going down that path. It's not part of it. Look, and I'll leave it at that. They're the main two things. So it's just about safety, really. Don't want anyone to strain themselves or hurt themselves. Unlikely, given that this isn't a exaggerated exploration. It is an exploration. So, lying there as you are, could you lift your left arm directly towards the ceiling, so it's vertical and pointed directly to the ceiling? And just feel what the nature of your contact with the ground is now, just what's shifted, what's changed just through doing that movement. And lower your arm again. And raise your left arm again and point your hand directly to the ceiling. So you want a vertical arm directly to the ceiling. And could you now extend that arm further as though you were reaching your hand towards the ceiling or towards the sky? And then lower it again. And just feel how you do that. And just do it several times. And just do it as an exploration. So you're doing this just to feel how you do it. Feel how this movement makes sense to you in your body. Making that left arm longer. Moving your hand closer to the ceiling. Keeping the arm straight, keeping the arm vertical. The arm doesn't have to be rigidly straight, just relatively straight. And so just feel as you're doing this, that this is a movement that's being generated from your shoulder. And so what's your shoulder doing? Just feel that this is your shoulder lifting and sweeping around your ribs and then coming back down. So this lesson is going to be focused on the movement of the shoulders and generating connection between the shoulders through the torso into the hips and pelvis. Okay, that's great. You can lower the arm and just have a little rest. There are lots of rests, not so much to rest the muscles because you should be tired. The rests are to give your central nervous system a moment to take stock, to be able to integrate what you've just been doing. When you're challenging the habitual and working out new ways, it's fair to give your body, your central nervous system, a moment to accommodate what's just been done and to be able to sort whether that was a useful thing or not a useful thing. And if it's a useful thing, then your nervous system needs a moment to be able to adopt it, pack it in as a new possibility. So lift your left arm again in that same position and just feel now with your arm vertical, where's the back of your shoulder? Where's your shoulder blade in relation to the floor? Is it lifted up off the floor? And this is just in your resting neutral position. So raise your arm again vertically and then lower your arm. Now keep your arm vertical and lift your arm towards the ceiling and then lower it, keeping it vertical. So you're keeping your arm vertical throughout this whole exploration, and just go up and down and just feel whether you're able to tap the back of your shoulder blade, against the floor. Just do multiple little taps and just feel, is that different to where you started? And what part of your shoulder is tapping the floor here? It's a really interesting structure of the shoulder. Let's just switch to skeleton cam for a moment. And you're not going to be able to hear me, but I just want to show you the skeleton's shoulder for a second. So, as you can see there, the structure of the shoulder is wrapping around the rib cage. So you've got a front section, which is the clavicle, the collarbone, and then that wraps around to become the scapula at the back. And as you can see, there's a big ridge along the scapula. And so when you're tapping the back of that, that's what you're feeling, this rigid bone structure that muscles are joining to. So now the interesting thing about that girdle structure is that it can sweep around your rib cage. So the rib cage is this basket, and the shoulder is able to sweep around it and give you a lot of latitude there, a lot of movement possibility. So let's get back to it. Could you lift your left arm towards the ceiling again, so that same position. Now lift your arm, extending from the shoulder again, and then just feel whether your head's able to participate in this movement. So allow your head to roll to the right as you do it, and just so feel how much of you is involved in the movement. How does this movement travel through yourself? How does the movement of lifting your shoulder interact with your torso, with your rib cage? And so you're allowed, in fact, I invite you to shift your weight as you're doing this. And can stop that, lower your shoulder, lower your arm, and just feel whether anything's changed in the contact that you're making with the floor. Just feel in particular how the back of your left shoulder is lying as opposed to the back of your right shoulder. And just feel, can you discriminate whether there's any difference just from doing those simple explorations? And can you roll onto your right side? Bend your knees at a 45-degree angle. So your left knee is lying on top of your right knee. Now, if you have any neck problems or neck pain, you might want a rolled up towel or a little cushion or jumper or just something under your head. But if you're able to just let your head hang off your right shoulder, then that's ideal. And can you lie on your right side, so you're very clearly on your right side and you're not twisted. So your torso is very much, so your left shoulder is pointing towards the ceiling, basically. Rachel, would you mind squiggling back a little bit? Great. Now you can put your right arm out in front of you, And could you raise your left arm towards the ceiling again? So your left arm is vertical as it was before, but your orientation has changed. You're now lying on your right side. Now, could you lift your arm, keeping it so throughout this exploration, your left arm remains vertical, right? So that doesn't change. You want a vertical left arm. However, I want you to explore lifting your left arm, extending your left arm so it's longer. So you're coming up towards the ceiling and then lowering it. So making a shorter arm and a longer arm. And so in keeping the arm straight and in keeping it vertical, obviously the only place to move here is your shoulder. And so what's happening as you lower your arm, you're letting your scapula, letting your shoulder blade sink back lower towards your spine. And then as you lift that whole structure, you're lifting the whole shoulder structure up. And you can actually let it curve around, sweep around your rib cage to come up. And as you continue to do this, just explore it. Just feel how you can explore this movement of the shoulder. It's quite different in this position to what it was when you're lying on your back. So let's go up and down. Now remember, you're looking for ease, you're looking for grace of movement, and you really want to note where you feel restriction and just note it. Don't try and push past it. Just feel it, note it, and come back. We'll get through these things by clarifying them and having some sense of what can be let go. Okay, lower your arm, let it rest against your right arm. Just have a little rest. Everyone's resting. And lift your left arm again. Now, can you engage in that exploration once more, but now allow your torso the latitude of rolling a little. So as you lower your arm, keeping your arm vertical again, as you lower your arm, allow your torso to roll back. And you'll find that in doing this, you might find that your shoulder is able to sink lower and lower towards the floor behind you. And then as you come up, you're rolling forward, keeping the arm vertical, and allow your head to move as well. In fact, you can even involve your eyes in this. Eyes are great for orienting us. So watch your hand as you do it. You can look at your hand as you do this, and you'll find that that incorporates the movement of your head and your neck. And just feel this as a full body movement. How much of you can be involved in this lying on your side, in lifting and lowering, extending that left arm so as to incorporate all of your movement potential. You might find that your left knee wants to lift a little bit, so let it. You can do that. You don't want to lift it all the way up. It's just lifting as an artifact of this movement. And you might find that as you're doing this, you can feel the back of your shoulder satisfyingly resting against the floor as you do it. And then as you come all the way back up, you feel yourself rising so your hand reaches this highest point. You can feel that you're actually able to achieve quite a bit of height through doing this. Okay, and lower that arm so your hand's resting against your right palm. So your left hand is against your right hand. And now do another interesting thing. So straighten both arms out in front of you So your right arm's against the floor and your left arm, or your left palm is against your right palm. Now sweep your left arm up into that vertical position and do this numerous times, and each time extend your arm a little bit further back behind you. So you're lifting the arm directly up towards the ceiling, but then keep it going back and back, and you might even find that you end up in a very similar position that you were before, except with your arm spread eagled out. And then lift your arm back up and sweep it all the way back in this big arc towards your right arm. And just do that a few times, just to do this exploration of how your arm and shoulder interact with your whole body so as to open up all the way through your rib cage. Your head is following gently, and then the next time you're in that spread eagled position with your left arm resting against the floor to your left. And if your arm doesn't comfortably go all the way to the floor, that's fine. Just let it go where it goes. It's not about reaching the floor. It's just the floor is a direction. So wherever you find it can rest comfortably, keep it there, and then gently roll your head left and right. So leave your arms where they are. So your right arm is extended all the way to the right. Your left arm is extended all the way to the left, and gently rolling your head left and right. So you're decoupling the need for your head and neck to be connected to the movement of your shoulder here. You're differentiating the head and the neck from the rest of you. And then stop doing that and sweep that left arm all the way back to meet your right hand. And can you roll onto your back and have a little rest with your arms and legs long and your hands by your side. And just breathe softly and just feel what's shifted, if anything. Send your attention to the back of your ribs and your rib cage, and just feel whether you can sense any difference to the left side of your chest and the right side of your chest. And what about your shoulders? Has there been any change in how they feel? Often what happens, so the floor is this great kinesthetic mirror. It's nice and firm and hard. This is the ground under our feet. So the ground is there to support you. How we perceive that support is dynamic and changing all the time. So when muscles are tight, taut, strained, sore, often their response to the floor, or the feedback, is that the floor's hard, it's pointed, you can really feel these distinct areas. And then as the muscles soften, as they learn to move differently, or as they become more intelligent, that the habitual tightness loosens, it lessens. And so the floor that was very firm and hard previously all of a sudden starts feeling soft. Now the floor, I can tell you, hasn't changed, but the parts of us that are in contact change. And that's one of the beautiful results of doing this kind of work. So just feel how your shoulders feel now, and you might find that your left shoulder blade, the back of your left shoulder area might feel softer, wider, warmer. Sometimes I even feel that it kind of I have a sense of it disappearing. I find it even harder to sense it at all. It's just like it's gone. It's just comfortable. Okay, where are we up to? Could you bend your left leg, bend your left knee so as to stand your left foot? And can you raise your left hand, extend your left arm towards the ceiling again? And I now want you to try another thing. So we're going to incorporate something else into what you were doing. So I want you to extend that left arm towards the ceiling again, and think of the movement and lower it, and think of the movement as you were just doing, that it flows through you, it incorporates your whole self, that your head is free and able to move and follow. And when you reach the highest point that you feel that you can go to, lying on your back, I want you to push into the floor with your left foot and feel that you're able to roll yourself onto your right side, and then lower yourself back down. And in lowering yourself back down, feel that that movement begins with your shoulder, with your arm. So you're extending yourself up through the initiation of your shoulder and that left arm, and then you're pushing through your left foot and rolling yourself onto your right side with your arm still in the vertical position. And then you're lowering the shoulder, lowering the arm down, still in the vertical position. So it's actually the back of your shoulder blade is sweeping back around your rib cage towards your spine, and then descending down lower and lower. And you're releasing your left hip, and you sink back down to find this nice, safe, comfortable support of the floor on your back. And just do that a few times. Just do that. Continue to do that. And then just looking for ease in doing this. This extension, this length of your arm, and this capacity to roll onto your right side, because there's a harmony between what's happening with your shoulder and what's happening in your hip and your pelvis. But that's not all of it, is it? There's also the connection between your pelvis area and your shoulder. So just feel what's happening in those muscles of your abdomen and your ribs to allow this movement to flow through. And pause for a moment, lower your hand, extend your knee, extend your legs, just have a brief rest. Switch to skeleton. He's so good at resting. He's happy too. Can you see how happy he's looking? Such a toothy grin. Right. Okay, can you return to that position? So bend your left knee and stand your left foot and extend your left arm towards the ceiling. Now, I want you to do that movement again, but I want you to be really clear this time in the sequence. So this is about timing and sequencing. So I want you to extend the arm. I'll just talk you through it before you do it. Oh, you can do it now as well if you want, it doesn't really matter. So you're going to extend the arm to the longest it can be, so the highest it can be, through pushing through the shoulder. Now, when it reaches its zenith, when it reaches the highest point, then I want you to push through your foot and roll yourself onto your side. And then I want you to be really clear that to get back onto your back, it's a movement that is being generated by your left shoulder. So your left shoulder is coming down, and it's like the back of that shoulder blade, that place that you were tapping on before, that place is searching for the ground. And in its search, that movement is going to flow through the whole of yourself, and it's going to arrive at your left hip, and your left hip and your pelvis are going to follow and roll back, and they're going to find that place as well. You can almost think of that back of your left hip, the back of the left side of your pelvis, of your sacrum, is going to be engaged in its own search for the ground as well. So here's connection embodied, right? So I talked about it at the beginning. Now we're playing with it in a really real sense through the whole of yourself. So you're pushing up with your left arm, and the shoulder. When it reaches its highest place, you're pushing through your left foot to roll yourself onto your side, and then to get back down, the back of your left shoulder is searching for the ground, and then that's going to correspond and flow through the whole of yourself, arrive at your left hip, and then your pelvis is going to roll down and you're going to find the ground with your left hip as well. Now, rinse and repeat. Continue to do that. Just find your own way through that. I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to be silent and just let Rachel be in her exploration and let you be in yours. Remember, you're looking for ease and grace. Okay, that's great. And lower your left leg and lower your left arm and have a little rest. Just gently roll your head a little left and right. And stop that. Your breathing be full, easy. Just feel the difference between your left side and your right side, and you can extend this all the way up into your face. Have a sense of your left eye and your right eye and whether you can feel any difference. What about the left side of your mouth and the right side of your mouth? Changes in the nervous system are indiscriminate, and they will flow through all of your different structures. Can you extend your arms out to the sides of yourself so you're in that spread eagled position again? And put your palms facing up. And can you roll your pelvis a little bit left and right? Now, this can be tricky to get started when you're not used to doing it. So how do you do it? How do you roll your pelvis a little bit left and right, keeping your arms out to the sides like this? And can you make that a supple and quick movement? So you're just kind of tossing your pelvis to the left and right. And feel it as a roll. So you're rolling it left and right rather than shifting it left and right. And just feel that in doing this, your knees need to be soft. Knees can be soft, and feel what's happening with your feet, that your toes can be turning left and right as well. And now exaggerate it, make it a larger movement. Try and keep your breathing easy and free. Just notice if you're holding your breath at all. And pause. Now, can you just turn your pelvis to the right? And then back. And to the right and back. And as you do this, allow your knees to point to the right. So we're just deliberately involving the pelvis now in this exploration of what it means to be coming onto the right side. And you want it to be a soft movement, so everything's soft. Your knees are soft, your legs are soft, pelvis is soft. The muscles in your torso, whilst being engaged, are having to be an allowance of this twist as well. And does it help if you were to pull your feet up a little bit? So sliding your feet along the surface of the floor. And so you find that your knees kind of come into a position similar to how they were when you're rolling onto your right side with your knees bent. And what happens in your arms, what happens in your shoulders? Are your shoulders able to be compliant and remain on the floor? Okay, pause. And now turn your pelvis to the left and engage in the same exploration and allow your knees to be soft. In fact, allow your knees to be drawn up, to be lying in this kind of semi on your side position. So your pelvis is really coming up onto its side, but be very clear that you're still lying on your back as you do this. So your shoulders are lying on your back is on your back, but your lower back and your pelvis are turning. And go back to turning yourself to the right. When do you breathe? Is it helpful to breathe in or out as you're doing this? All right, have a little rest again. Put your hands by your sides and just feel whether the surface contact at the back of your pelvis feels any different having done that little exploration. And can you raise your left arm towards the ceiling again? So your left arm is vertical, your fingers are not extended, your hands relaxed, but generally oriented towards the ceiling. Feel how your shoulder blade is lying on the floor. Is it soft against the floor? Is it lifted up? Has any of that shifted? Now, thinking about and incorporating what you've just been doing, moving your pelvis left and right and feeling the suppleness of your knees and that your feet are able to turn, could you extend your left arm towards the ceiling once more and feel the body's capacity, your body's capacity for that movement to flow all the way from your shoulder down through your torso into your pelvis so as to roll onto your right side. So just explore that. How do you do that? How do you incorporate all that we've just done and now join the two parts together? So keep your left arm oriented towards the ceiling. So left arm remains vertical throughout. And it's just this sweeping movement of your shoulder, sweeping around your rib cage, influencing the roll of your chest and your rib cage. There's a tightening, obviously, of your abdominal wall, the abdominal muscles, which are then going to cascade down and interact with your pelvis and your hips, and your pelvis will begin to roll. And in doing that, your knees need to be soft to accommodate the movement for you to roll onto your right side. Throughout all of this, you're thinking about the generative part of it is that you're extending that hand up as high as it can go. Up as high as it can go. And you're letting your head hang and roll. And then you're coming back. Now, in coming back, how do you do that? It's a sequence, remember? So it's starting, it's initiated by your pelvis, and then it cascades through all of yourself. And the qualitative aspect that you're searching for here is flow and ease and grace. You want this to be something that passes through all of yourself in a satisfying way, in a way that's languid is a good word. Languid, it's almost like you're a cat stretching. So just explore that. So you're pouring yourself up onto your right side and then pouring yourself back down. And both directions are initiated by your shoulder and your intention to lift your hand as high as it can go and then to lower it, keeping your arm vertical throughout. Just a few more times and then a little rest. Oh, I should have said a lot earlier as well. Rest whenever you need to. If I don't give enough rest breaks, then just take a rest whenever you need to. There's no prizes for sticking with it and pushing through discomfort. And lower your left arm and have a little rest. Close your eyes and raise your right arm towards the ceiling. So your right arm is vertical. Feel what kind of contact the back of your right shoulder is making from the outset. Is it lifted up off the floor? Is it settled against the floor? Don't move. So I'm going to freeze all action now. Skeleton cam's a good example of this, but so is Rachel. I just want you to imagine, I'm going to talk you through this sequence, and I want you to imagine it in whatever way you can. So for some people, it's a visual thing. For some people, it's a felt experience. And for some people, you can think your way through it. So however it is, and for some people, it's just a non-event. So however it is for you, just try and go with me on this. So imagine reaching higher to the ceiling. Imagine reaching higher to the ceiling with this right arm. And imagine in doing that, how you could roll over completely onto your left side. And this sense of that shoulder girdle, the shoulder blade sweeping around the right side of your ribs, and this cascading movement flowing down your spine, arriving at your pelvis, and your pelvis shifting across to the left. And for that to happen, your knees would need to be soft, and your legs would turn, and your feet would turn, and then you could softly pull your knees up so you'd be lying on your left side. And still in your imagination, feel how you would flow back to the floor onto your back, simply by lowering your shoulder blade to the floor. Okay, you can lower your right arm now. And can you lie on your left side? So lying on your left side, reach your right hand up to the ceiling again and keep it there. And just explore. Just explore lifting and lowering your right arm to the ceiling. So you're lifting it, extending it towards the ceiling, and now you're lowering by letting the shoulder blade sweep down and find the floor. And you might find that it's helpful to search for the hand with your eyes, and then you're lifting back up and sweeping around and feeling that your torso is able to respond and roll and lift and roll, and it's all being generated by the capacity of your right shoulder to sweep down and then wrap back up. And so it's like you're pouring yourself down and then flowing back up, letting your head roll freely, letting your entire body respond until you feel like this shoulder has the power to turn you completely, which it does. And have a rest on your back. I don't know why you're doing that, it's great. Okay. So, lift your right arm towards the ceiling. Just put your left arm out to the side a little bit to give yourself some room. And once again, imagine. So you're in your imagination, don't move. So think and feel and experience. Your right arm reaching up, the shoulder sweeping around, the movement flowing down through your spine, engaging your abdominal muscles, reaching your pelvis turning, your legs softening, your knees softening, and your knees being able to flow over onto your left side and be drawn up a little bit in such a way as that your shoulder is generating this full movement of rolling you onto your left side. And then to come down, it's simply your shoulder initiating the movement to find its position back onto the floor. Now do it. Physicalize it. So you're lifting that left arm vertically up, letting the shoulder sweep around, feeling the muscles through your torso engage so as to soften your knees and roll your pelvis onto the left side. And then to get back down, you're lowering your arm, lowering your shoulder, finding the floor and letting the movement sweep down. And now just explore going up and back. And you're a great example of this, Rachel, but really letting your head be soft and stay on the floor throughout the movement. So don't worry if this doesn't feel particularly easy or graceful. It's actually a movement that requires a lot and a lot of coordination. You can lower your right arm again now, just rest on your back with your arms by your side. Just feel whether there's any equalization in the sensation at the back of your pelvis, in the back of your shoulders. Now you might have a sense of what side was easier and what side was harder. I've just quickened up the end of this lesson a little bit because we've reached time. So if you want to, and if you have time, and if you're not cooked by this experience, you could just explore doing that movement on your left side and your right side a little bit. We jumped over on your right side. I didn't give you the opportunity to bend your right leg and push through your right foot, so you might want to explore that a little bit. But other than that, enjoy the sensations in your body. Apart from extending self-awareness in how you move yourself, these lessons also really activate the parasympathetic nervous system in such a way as to lower cortisol levels and to de-stress the body and the self. So you might find, in fact, just feel into yourself now. So I've been talking about feeling into your physical experience, but just feel into your felt experience, your emotional experience, just how you're feeling about yourself and your day. now as opposed to when you began. And hopefully there's some difference there, some room to move, some increased breath, airiness in these strange times that we're living in. So thank you for joining me, everyone.